Hello guys and welcome back to another video of Between the Ropes TV. Guys, you've got myself and Josh today, and today we're going to be going through the zone card of Montana Love versus Stevie Spark. That will be taking place in Montana Love's backyard in Ohio, Cleveland. So yeah, let's go into quite a quick background of for the fighters, for the viewers. Obviously, Montana Love comes into this fight 18 wins, no losses, 1 draw, and 9 knockouts. And he's a southpaw and he's quite an athletic fighter. His opponent, Stevie Spark, fighting out of Australia. He's no pushover. He's had 15 wins. He's knocked out 14 of those 15 people. He has got 2 losses on his record. Josh, I'm going to come to you. How do you think this fight plays out?
To be honest, I think, as you said, Spark, he's pretty durable, and this is an opportunity for him to sort of crash the scene a little bit. He's only been stopped once in his career, obviously last year against Tim Zhu, and we all know what Tim Zhu's gone on to do. So there's definitely no shame in that, particularly if Zhu gets on well in his world title fight in the new year. And he's been busy. He's won his last 3. It is against limited opposition, but he can definitely punch, as the record suggests. And, you look at Montana Love, and this is the bit that excites me for this fight and this card, in fairness, because Montana Love now, it's his second outing of the year, but it's his first headline bout. And I think it's fair to say, I don't know whether you all agree or disagree, Montana Love is probably the first name that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom have built in the US. I don't want to say to being a star, because he's not a star just yet, but I definitely think, most boxing fans are very aware of Montana Love and what he's doing. And I'm excited for this one because it's first headline show. He's 27 years of age now. So for me, this very much needs to be a statement win and then on to big fights in 2023. His record, he can box and he can punch a little bit, but he's a bit of a mix of both for me. Particularly in that sort of division, super lightweight, you get punchers and you get boxers, well, as in a lot of divisions in fairness, but for me, he's a bit of a mix, but I am backing him to get the stoppage win on the weekend.
Yeah, well, we saw him. He last featured on the undercard of Canelo vs. Bivol back in May. And obviously, it weren't exactly a walk in the park, he did drop his opponent, but he also got dropped. And we saw that he was a little bit hesitant in getting that confidence back and getting his mojo back. How do you think that's going to affect him going into this fight?
I don't think it will. 6 months he's had out the ring now. So you'd like to say, hopefully, he's going to have stayed busy, stayed in the gym, stayed active. And, getting dropped for me before you get to that world level, although people worry about it, for me, it's never a bad thing, because there's nothing worse than when a fighter gets to that world level and then crumbles because they've not had the right tests. I think back to Anthony Joshua versus Klitschko. By the time he got to Klitschko, yes, he'd already had a couple of world title fights, but he'd never really been threatened. And then in fairness to him, he answered those questions. Obviously, he got up off the floor to win. But we've seen plenty of fighters, when they get to that world title fight, if they go down, they just crumble and it's the end for them. So for me, I think if you're Montana Love, you've got to take that as a positive, and that's a box ticked along the journey. He's had 19 fights now, obviously 18 of them being wins. But it's time to kick on now, I think. And if I was him, I'd be looking at Steve Spark and thinking, yeah, he's durable. Yeah, he's been in with the likes of a Tim Zhu. But at the same time, he knows the pressure's on because, as I said, Eddie Hearn and Matchroom are backing him with DAZN. They're giving him that headline slot. And don't forget, this is sandwiched in a big run for DAZN, so they're not going to want to lose momentum with the fights that, obviously, we've seen Taylor Carabajal. We've got White Franklin coming up. Chocolatito's back. There's a big end to the year for Matchroom and DAZN. They're not going to want to see momentum dip off with Montana Love. So with this opposition, he has got to go and make a statement. And if he wants to make a name for himself at 140 and show, guys, I'm here, get me those big fights, he's got to do it, and he's got to do it well, because we've already seen the belts get fragmented now. They're not all Josh Taylor's anymore. So there's a chance that, by next summer, we could be talking about Montana Love in a world title fight. If he puts on a real good show here and then has one in, springtime next year and does the same again. So he's got it all at his fingertips. And, you know, with the DAZN and Matchroom platform, they've tried with other names, Andrade being one of them. They've tried to get these American names, and it's just not worked, if we're being honest. Montana Love is one of the few cases where it has worked, and they have built him to a bigger platform than what he was previously. So the pressure's on him here. You know, Eddie Hearn's effectively said, "There's the keys, mate. Go and open the door."
Yeah. So obviously, just that'll bring me on to my next point. Obviously, we know Montana Love. You made reference to it earlier in the video. In terms of, you know, boxers' activity since we've had the lockdown with the COVID and whatnot, he's been out 5 times in the last 18 to 20 months. So that's really good activity for someone who is kind of on that trajectory of trying to be that sort of next guy. How far do you think he can go?
That's an interesting one because, you know, as you say, he's been very active. So it's really nice for us to be able to sit here and not talk about inactive because of the pandemic, because it has been a reoccurring thing since we started this channel. So he hasn't got that same, I don't want to say excuse because it's very valid, but he hasn't got that same, you know, little black dot against his career. So he couldn't use it as an excuse if he came up short. The 140-pound division is so big, and there's a lot of big names there. I think he can go. I think he can win a world title. I really do. But I think it's going to be a little bit lucky because of circumstances. Because, you know, I think it's no secret Josh Taylor will move up after the Catterall rematch, probably win, lose, or draw. You know, obviously Zepeda's there, Progray's there, but these names have been there for a little while now. So, you know, there's more than enough room, I think, for a young lion, a Montana Love, to come in, cause a few shocks, and I think he can win a world title, but I don't think he's going to be one of these that wins multiple world titles and goes through the weight divisions. I think he, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking it, but I just think, you know, as I said, he can box a bit, he can punch a bit, but to get to that true level, you need to be incredible at one or the other, don't you? So I think that's where he'll get.
Yeah, I agree with you. And lastly, just to touch on his opponent, as before we move down the card, we know obviously for Spark, this fight is kind of like his ticket into, you know, maybe, you know, shocking the causing an upset and shocking the world, because we obviously know over recent months these big promoters, they've been going towards where he's sort of fighting out of in the New Zealand, Australia kind of area. So causing an upset is only going to, you know, raise eyebrows from Eddie Hearn, and he may look to snatch him up. What do you think the mindset is going to be for him going into this fight as the underdog?
Well, exactly that. I think in many ways it's easy to be the underdog, isn't it? Because there's no pressure. You know, he's going into Montana Love's backyard in Ohio. It's on a Matchroom and DAZN show. So, you know, and fighters aren't stupid, are they? They know, hang on, Montana Love, he's the only one that Matchroom have really had any success with. So the pressure is all on Montana Love. If that means Stevie Sparks got no pressure and can just fight freely and potentially pull off a shock, power to him. And let's not forget, if you look at a few of Matchroom's fighters now, look at Alicia Baumgardner. They had promotional options on her, but really she came over to lose to Terry Harper, and look where she is now. So, you know, I think that sort of sets a precedent, doesn't it? That Matchroom, and that, in fairness, one thing they did through the pandemic and have continued to do so is give opportunities to people. So it's all there for both of them, but in very different ways. And especially now Matchroom are trying to pump the Australian market, Stevie Spark could go over and could become a bit of a headline act for him, couldn't he?
Yeah. Well, obviously, moving on a bit, we obviously know that Raymond Ford features on the card. You know, he's a young, talented boxer. He's a southpaw. You know, he's featuring in the featherweight division, and he's making some pretty good moves. In his career at the moment. Obviously, he comes up against a guy called Zakaria Lucas. How do you think he fares in that fight?
I think he fares well. I'm a big fan of Ray Ford. You know, for anyone who's watched this channel for a little while, they'll know I like him a lot. You know, he's coming in with a 12-0 record, obviously the one draw, only the 6 knockouts. But, you know, UK fans should know him from the Reece Bellotti win at Fight Camp last year. But he's been active again. Nice little theme on this card, same as Montana Love. It's his 3rd outing of 2022. And in his last 2 fights, he's beaten 2 unbeaten fighters as well. So, you know, this isn't your 12-0 padded record. This is built the right way, consistently just making little steps up. I like him. I like what we're seeing from him. And I think he's a great prospect, and particularly for American fans to get behind. because obviously we always look to America as being a bit of a hub for boxing at many weight classes. And I think that's dipped off, it's fair to say, the last few years. But they've got some emerging talents coming through. And for me, Ray Ford is right at the front of that. And I'm backing him to get the win. I mean, the opponent, as you said, Lucas, is coming into this, and he's no mug. This is another good step up for him. He's 25-1 with the one draw, 17 stoppages, so he can punch. The only thing for me that's a concern, he's only had one fight in the last 20 months, and that was a draw in January of this year. So whereas we're saying it's great for Ray Ford that he is active, you know, Lucas isn't, in all fairness. So I am interested to see if there's a bit of ring rust there, because one fight in 20 months is just not, it's just not good enough, in all fairness. But I am predicting a Ray Ford win. I think it will go the distance. The opponent, as I said, the opponent's durable. But I also think it could be another one of those where potentially if the Lucas can overcome ring rust, he might clip Ray Ford, give him something to think about. And I think it could be another one where we talked about the same with Montana Love on the Canelo undercard. It could be another box ticked along that journey. And, you know, the featherweight division's absolutely booming now. I mean, I was thinking the other day about potential opponents for Ray Ford off the back of this. I'd love to see him back over in the UK. Someone like Jazza Dickens or, you know, names like that, Isaac Dogbo. Get him in with some Brits. Let's build him over here because that featherweight division is absolutely booming.
Certainly, I would 100% agree. Guys, he's a young fighter. He's 23 years old, fighting out of New Jersey. He's a southpaw. He's a very good boxer. And I think everyone should really tap into his career. Well, there you go, guys. Just a last question to close off. Is there any fights that, what do you think is going to be the fight of the night for this card?
I'm biased because I'm a big Ray Ford fan. But I'm excited to see how he gets on and fares on Saturday. Also, very intrigued by the Love and Stevie Spark fight. I don't think that's actually, because this week's so busy with, I mean, I've lost count of how many fights there actually is between exhibitions and Tuesdays. Yeah. But exactly, yeah. So I don't think it's getting the attention that this card deserves. But top to bottom, there's some really good, interesting fights. So, but I am biased, so I'm going with Ray Ford.
I would agree. Well, there you go, guys. There you got our prediction and our breakdown for the Montana Love versus Stevie Sparks fight. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one.